Taylor Swift froze as Donna Kelce inquired, "Aren't you pregnant?" Donna would be much more astonished by the test findings and Travis's response than Taylor had been by her own assumptions. November 8, 2025, at 4:30 p.m., for the third time that week, Taylor Swift experienced the familiar rush of nausea while assisting Donna Kelce with the arrangement of flowers for a family dinner. She clutched the kitchen counter's edge, attempting to breathe through it without bringing attention to herself. Donna looked up from the roses she was pruning and said, "You okay, sweetie?" Taylor instinctively answered, "I'm fine," even though even she could hear the tension in her voice. "Just tired. It's been a busy week in the studio." But it hadn't just been a busy week. For the past 10 days, Taylor had been feeling increasingly off, exhausted despite getting plenty of sleep, queasy at random times, and unusually emotional about things that normally wouldn't bother her. She'd attributed it to the stress of wedding planning combined with finishing her latest album. But the symptoms were becoming harder to ignore. "Here, sit down," Donna said, guiding Taylor to one of the kitchen stools. "You've been looking peaked all afternoon." Taylor gratefully accepted the seat, pressing a hand to her stomach as another wave of nausea hit. She'd been hoping the feeling would pass, but if anything, it seemed to be getting worse. "When did you last eat?" "I had breakfast this morning. Coffee and toast." "That's not enough," Donna said, instantly going into mother mode. "No wonder you feel sick." Donna moved to the refrigerator and started pulling out ingredients. "I'm making you a proper meal." "You don't have to do that," Taylor protested, though she was grateful for Donna's concern. "I'm sure I'll feel better once I get some rest." "Nonsense, so you're practically green around the gills." As Donna bustled around the kitchen preparing what appeared to be a full meal, Taylor tried to pinpoint when she'd started feeling this way. It had been gradual at first, just unusual tiredness that she'd blamed on her demanding schedule, but over the past few days, the nausea had become more frequent and she'd found herself crying at random things like commercials and Travis's sweet gestures. "Here," Donna said, placing a plate of crackers and ginger ale in front of Taylor. "This should help settle your stomach." Taylor took a small sip of the ginger ale and immediately felt a bit better. "Thank you. You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's no trouble at all. Besides, I've been through this before." Something in Donna's tone made Taylor look up. "Been through what before?" Donna was studying Taylor's face with an expression Taylor couldn't quite read. "The exhaustion, the nausea, the emotional sensitivity. How late is your period?" Taylor felt her blood run cold. "What, your period? Honey, when did you last have it?" Taylor's mind raced as she tried to remember. She'd been so busy with work and wedding planning that she hadn't really been tracking her cycle closely. But now that Donna mentioned it, she realized it had been longer than usual. I'm not sure exactly," Taylor said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Taylor," Donna said gently, sitting down across from her, "aren't you pregnant?" The question hung in the air like a bomb that had just been dropped. Taylor stared at Donna, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, unable to form words. "I know, I can't be," Taylor finally managed to say. Though even as the words left her mouth, she was doing the math in her head and realizing that yes, she very well could be. "When you were arranging those flowers, you went white as a sheet when you smelled them," Donna observed. "Strong scents making you nauseous is a classic early sign." "But we've been careful," Taylor said, though she was remembering a few occasions recently when they'd been caught up in the moment, and maybe hadn't been as careful as they should have been. "Careful isn't foolproof." "Sweetie," Donna said with a knowing smile, "how long has it been since your last period?" Taylor counted back in her head and her stomach dropped as she realized it had been almost 6 weeks. She'd been so distracted with work that she hadn't even noticed. "Oh my God," Taylor whispered, the reality of the situation finally hitting her. "Oh my God, I could be pregnant." "It's possible," Donna said gently. "Have you taken a test?" "No, I didn't even think about it until just now." Donna reached over and squeezed Taylor's hand. "Hey, breathe. If you are pregnant, that's not a bad thing. You and Travis love each other. You're engaged, and you'd make wonderful parents." "But we're not married yet," Taylor said, panic starting to creep into her voice. "The wedding isn't until June. We haven't talked about kids yet." "Not seriously. What if Travis isn't ready? What if this ruins everything?" "Taylor, slow down," Donna said firmly. "First of all, you don't even know for sure if you're pregnant. Second, if you are, Travis will be over the moon." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know my son. He's been talking about having kids with you since your third date." Taylor looked at her in surprise. "He has Not to you, obviously, because that would have been way too soon. But to me, to his father, to Jason. Travis has known since early on that he wanted to build a family with you." That information should have been reassuring, but Taylor still felt overwhelmed by the possibility. "I think I need to go home and take a test. Do you want me to come with you?" Taylor considered the offer. Part of her wanted the support, but another part felt like this was something she needed to process alone first before involving anyone else. "I think I need to do this by myself," Taylor said, "but thank you for offering." "Of course." "And Taylor, whatever the result is, everything's going to be okay." On the drive home to her and Travis's house in Kansas City, Taylor's mind was racing. She tried to imagine how Travis would react if she was pregnant. Would he be excited? Scared? Would he feel like this was too fast, too soon? She stopped at a pharmacy on the way home and bought 2 different pregnancy tests, figuring that different brands might give her more clarity. The cashier, a young woman who clearly recognized her, gave her a knowing look but didn't say anything, for which Taylor was grateful. When she got home, Travis was at practice, which gave her time to take the tests in private. She read the instructions carefully for the first test, took it, and then sat on the bathroom floor waiting for the results, her heart pounding. After 3 minutes, she looked at the test. There was definitely one line, but next to it was what might have been a second line. So faint she had to squint to see it, so light she wasn't sure if it was really there or if she was imagining it. Is that a line? She whispered to herself, holding the test up to the light. Or is that nothing? Frustrated by the ambiguity, she took the second test from a different brand. This one also showed one clear line, and what appeared to be a very faint second line. But again, it was so light she couldn't be certain. Taylor stared at both tests, feeling more confused than before. Were these positive? Negative? The instructions said that any second line, no matter how faint, indicated pregnancy, but these lines were so barely visible that she couldn't trust them. She heard Travis's truck pull into the driveway and quickly gathered up the tests, hiding them in her nightstand drawer. She needed time to figure out what they meant before sharing this uncertainty with Travis. "Hey babe," Travis called as he came through the front door. "How was your afternoon with Mom?" Taylor said, "It was interesting," which was undoubtedly accurate. Bruto asked, "How was practice?" "Because of the fumble in the game last week, the coach made us perform additional drills." Still wearing his gym attire, Travis emerged in the bedroom doorway, looking worn out but delighted to see her. "Are you all right? You appear somewhat pallid." Taylor answered, "I'm fine," even though she was aware that her expression likely mirrored her own confusion and anxiety. Travis took a closer look at her face. "Are you certain? You've been acting strangely all week." "Simply worn out after working on the album." Travis took a seat beside her on the bed and drew her in. "Perhaps you ought to take a rest. You've been challenging yourself a lot recently." Taylor felt both better and worse in Travis's arms. It was worse because she was hiding this enormous uncertainty from him, but it was better because he always made her feel secure and cherished. "Travis," she replied, stepping back to examine his face. "Could I ask you a question?" "Anything? What are your thoughts on children? In other words, when would you like them?" Travis's face became contemplative. "One day, I really hope to have children. Actually, sooner rather than later is preferable. Maybe a year or 2 after we tie the knot. Once we've had some time to simply be married." "Why, I was just curious. Timing is something we've never really discussed. I don't want to wait too long though. My dream is to become a young father. I want to spend time as newlyweds first, but I also want to be able to keep up with our children." Travis stopped and examined her face. "Why do you want to know? Have you been considering this?" Taylor answered, "A little," which was accurate in theory. "Excellent, since I've also been considering it. I'd want to have children with you, Taylor, even though I know we haven't really discussed it. You would be a fantastic mother in my opinion." His remarks caused tears to well up in Taylor's eyes. "Do you honestly believe that?" "I am aware. You're patient, caring, and kind, and you get along so well with Wyatt and Elliot. In addition, our children would be stunning and most likely quite gifted." "What if it occurred earlier than anticipated?" Quietly, Taylor inquired. "By what do you mean? What if we became pregnant, either prior to or immediately following the wedding?" Travis remained silent for a while, obviously giving her questions careful thought. "Babies don't follow our timelines, I suppose, and I would be overjoyed if that were the case. However, I would prefer that we be married for at least a year before having children." "Why do you give this much thought?" "Maybe," Taylor said. And then, before she could lose her nerve, she stood up and went to her nightstand drawer. "Travis, I need to show you something." She pulled out the 2 pregnancy tests and handed them to him, watching his face carefully as he processed what he was looking at. Travis stared at the tests for a long moment, holding them up to the light and squinting at them just as she had. "Are these positive?" he asked finally, his voice uncertain. "I don't know," Taylor admitted. "I think there might be very faint second lines, but I can't tell for sure. That's why I'm showing you. I need another pair of eyes." Travis examined the tests more closely. "I think maybe, but they're so faint. I can't be certain either." "So, you see the lines, too?" "I think so, but these are really hard to read." Travis looked up at her. "When did you take these?" "About an hour ago. Your mom asked me if I was pregnant this afternoon and I realized my period is late." "How late?" "About 2 weeks, maybe more. I haven't been tracking it closely." Travis set the tests down on the nightstand and pulled Taylor into his arms. "Okay, so we might be pregnant or we might not be. Either way, we need to find out for sure." "You're not freaking out?" "I'm processing," Travis said honestly. "But no, I'm not freaking out. If you are pregnant, we'll figure it out. If you're not, that's okay too." Really? "But Taylor, we need to see a doctor. These tests are too unclear to base any decisions on." "Good idea. I want to know for sure before we tell anyone else." "Agreed. And in the meantime, we should probably assume you might be pregnant and act accordingly. No alcohol. Take it easy. Eat well. Taylor felt a surge of love for Travis at his practical, caring response. Even in uncertainty, he was already thinking about taking care of her and their potential baby. The next morning, Taylor managed to get an appointment with her doctor for that afternoon. Travis insisted on coming with her despite having team meetings he was supposed to attend. "The team will understand," he said when Taylor protested. "This is more important." At the doctor's office, Taylor felt nervous as they waited to be called back. Travis held her hand and tried to keep the conversation light, but she could tell he was as anxious as she was for answers. Taylor Swift, a nurse, called, and they followed her back to an examination room. Dr. Sarah Kim, Taylor's gynecologist, came in a few minutes later with a warm smile. "So, you think you might be pregnant?" Dr. Kim asked after reviewing Taylor's chart. Taylor clarified, "I took 2 home tests yesterday, and they both showed very faint second lines. I was unable to determine if they were favorable or unfavorable." "When was your last menstrual period?" Dr. Kim nodded while taking notes after Taylor provided the date. "And you've been having symptoms?" "I've experienced nausea, exhaustion, emotional sensitivity, and an increased sensitivity to scents. All of those are typical signs of early pregnancy. Let's check your hormone levels and confirm your pregnancy with a blood test. After that, we'll do an ultrasound to see what's going on." After the blood was swiftly extracted, Travis held Taylor's hand as she lay on an examination table while Dr. Kim set up the ultrasound apparatus. Dr. Kim cautioned, "This might be a little cold," as she put the gel on Taylor's stomach. As Dr.